Hey everyone, RogueGold here. Welcome back to The Division 2 and welcome to 2026, my friends. We are officially approaching 10 years since the birth of this franchise all the way back in 2016, and I don't know about all of you, but that makes me feel exceptionally old. So that's fun. But on a more serious note, we've got a big year ahead for this game and franchise, with the aforementioned 10th anniversary set to deliver some big surprises, with the Division 2 heading for winter, with survivors on the way. In many ways though, 2026 is also a gamble for the Division. We are seeing more developers, resources, and funding put into the franchise than we've seen in many years, and that's much to fans' delight. But after all this time, are players going to show up to satisfy that investment? Don't worry, we'll discuss. Overall, as we've done for the past couple of years, I just wanted to kick off the new year by providing an overview of what you can expect for the year ahead. Of course, we don't know everything at this point in time, but big picture, by the time you're done watching this, you should have a good sense of where we are headed. I'm excited. Let's get right to it. If you want to stay looped in for everything the Division has coming this year, then be sure to subscribe and I'll have you covered. Also have to take a moment to thank all of our channel members. The number of you who are willing to go out of your way and support the channel in 2025 blew me away, and I'm incredibly grateful to have all of that heading into 2026. Lastly, timestamps will be listed down below for you to skip around as you please, but with all of that down, let's take a look at what 2026 has in store. Let's start with the Division 2, as that is per usual at the front line of content and updates that we get. I am going to be separating this from Survivors, just a heads up. Even though it is Division 2 content, it's really its whole own entity that I want to discuss, so we'll get to that next. Aside from that, what is in store for the Division 2 this year? Well, currently we seem to be on the cusp of receiving that very answer. At the moment, we are in the full swing on Year 7 Season 3, Mutiny, that is set to run until March, and March is where things are set to go down. It is going to be one of, if not the biggest month of the year for the Division. As we already mentioned, it will mark the 10th anniversary since the launch of the Division 1, and so on the existing content roadmap that we have, the next blip is the 10th anniversary. This is paired with a card stating Tom Clancy's The Division 2 new content with a giant question mark, and as of right now, we don't know what that content will be. On the more pessimistic side, this could just be another season. Again, our current season is set to end in March. Would this mean that we get a Year 7 Season 4 or skip straight to Year 8 in order to realign ourselves with March kicking off new content years like in the old days? Hard to say there. Or could this be something more? Again, this is the 10th anniversary of everything. That is a remarkable milestone for any IP, and one that you only get to celebrate once. The devs have expressed their intention of making this a memorable one. So, in truth, I think the possibilities are pretty vast. Questionnaires were sent out last year after the release of the Brooklyn DLC, asking where players would want to go if they were to do future DLC releases. Could they be cooking up some kind of DLC, maybe more akin to the 1.8 Westside Piers expansion from the Division 1? Maybe. That would certainly be anniversary worthy in my eye. Or could we perhaps be getting some kind of new game mode or other major game update? To be clear, so far we have basically no indication of what March will bring content-wise, but I would not underestimate the devs' intent to surprise players, especially given their newfound boost in resources that we'll discuss towards the end of the video. One bit of good news from all of this, though, is that we may not have to wait long to get a sense of what's in store. As we covered in a video just recently, it was announced that the Division 2 is going to be attending FPS Day, a convention held in Tokyo, Japan between the 11th and 12th of January, and the game's creative director, product manager, and others will be taking the stage to premiere the 10th anniversary, whatever that may mean. On top of that, though, it has been confirmed that attendants will have the opportunity to play a hands-on demo of whatever new content is being cooked up. So, the bottom line is that all signs point to the potential for some big announcements and content coming in March, and we are likely to get our first preview for that in just a matter of days. Aside from all things 10th anniversary and mystery content, however, we can without question anticipate another full year of updates and content for the game. Despite those holding out hope, I can assure you that the Division 3 is not going to be releasing in 2026. I'm sorry. So, in the meantime, there appear to be no plans to wind down on the Division 2, so much so that the devs claim it is going to be a wild ride for the game in 2026, if that's anything to go by. But for now, no specifics yet on when we might make the transition to Year 8, whether that may be in March or sometime this summer, but fully expect that we will get a roadmap of what's to come, whatever may be in store, most likely at the upcoming anniversary celebration. Next up, let's talk survivors. Because while other things and stuff seem to very much be in the works for The Division 2, this is the actual piece of content and update that we know of for sure. Now, why separate this from the main Division 2 section of the video? Well, that's because in many ways it feels like its own separate project despite being an update for The Division 2 itself. For any who may not know, Survivors has been confirmed to be an upcoming mode that will reimagine and modernize the beloved Survival DLC from The Division 1. Survival was a 24-player survival experience in which your character crash lands during a blizzard, in turn losing all of their gear and equipment, and you then have to set out into the storm to try and survive. It was very much an early take on the battle royale and extraction shooter genres when it released back in 2016, but with the option for players to experience it in full PvE or PvP enabled, as well as the insane immersion that it offered, many think that it stands out amongst the competition, even going on a decade later. This experience is being built by many Division franchise OGs at Massive Entertainment itself, whereas the bulk of current-day Division 2 support comes out of Ubisoft Bucharest. So, needless to say, anticipation is high for this new edition. Details on the mode so far are sparing, but we do know some things. The fact that PvE and PvP queues will return, the clear confirmation that this content will finally see Washington, D.C. plunged into the bitter cold of winter, the reveal that the D.C. map is going to be expanded, specifically in its underground network for greater traversal and exploration. The actual content, though, is less in question, as we generally know what this is aiming for. The big question on everybody's minds is when will this be releasing and will it be paid? To tackle the release date first, currently we have no confirmed window or date. On that aforementioned content roadmap, Survivors is the furthest placed card beyond the 10th anniversary in March with a to-be-announced label for its release date. So, my guess is truly as good as anybody else's as for when we will be able to get our hands on this. But here's what I am predicting based on what we know. Magnus Jansen, who was the original creative director on The Division 1 and is now serving as creative director on Survivors, he informed us that development was quite early on this content back in August when it was revealed at Gamescom. So early, he said, that they didn't even have t-shirts or other merchandise to wear and promote it. The next time we saw him was back on Halloween, where he joined a dev stream to provide some new details and an overall update on development. In that stream, he confirmed that starting sometime in 2026, they plan to begin involving the Elite Task Force in Survivors development in order to allow their feedback to help guide the team's progress. Now, for any who don't know, the ETF is essentially the Division's version of an insider program, as many games have. It's been around since 2016, and its goal has always been getting passionate players of all types to come together and offer their perspective on upcoming content or other prospective changes. By him stating that ETF involvement will begin in 2026 tells me that the release date for Survivors is still a ways out, as at minimum that involvement will need to happen months in advance in order for their feedback to truly shape the final product. So, my prediction is that Survivors will launch sometime in Q3 or Q4 of 2026. Not only will this coming November mark the 10th anniversary of the original survival mode's release, so I could totally see them capitalizing on that nostalgia, but also it just makes sense for them to release a winter-heavy mode as you head into winter, at least for the Northern Hemisphere. My apologies to any Aussies out there. So, again, I could be completely wrong. That is just my guess, but we will see what plays out. The final question then, will Survivors be a paid addition to the game, or a free release for those who own the base game? Again, currently we have no confirmation, and surprisingly, opinions here are pretty split within the community. Some argue that as high as anticipation is for this, Ubisoft will absolutely take advantage of that by charging for it, especially after the success that the Battle for Brooklyn DLC saw this past year. But on the other side, and this is where I fall, I believe it would be a huge mistake for them to charge for this content. Current day Division franchise executive producer Julian Garrity went on record in an interview back in 2018 stating that paywalling the original Survival was a mistake, that it split the player base and held the mode back from the spotlight that it deserved. Now, it goes without saying that a lot can change in 8 years, and I admit that, but for a piece of content that thrives on having populated queues and a multiplayer base, I would just be really surprised if they paywalled it yet again. However, we will just have to wait and see. Let's then shift gears to talk about The Division Resurgence. This is the franchise's mobile spin-off title, which was revealed. No, that can't be right. 3.5 years ago in the summer of 2022? Well, it's been a long road. The rumors of cancellation have swirled many a time since then, but believe it or not, it looks as though Resurgence is set to finally be releasing within the next 3 months. Here is the recap. Resurgence was originally set for release towards the end of 2023, then they went pretty radio silent. Eventually, Ubisoft claimed that it was set for a fiscal year 24 to 25 release, though that fell through. For a while now, they've claimed that it is definitely set for a fiscal 25 to 26 release, which on their fiscal calendar means it would need to launch before the end of March in order to hit that deadline, and it seems like it might finally actually happen. Throughout November and December, the game held a non-NDA'd regional beta test where invitees could jump on, stream, or post their gameplay and just give feedback on any and everything within the game. That test wrapped up a few weeks back, but afterwards the team posted this update. In it, they confirmed that they had over 100,000 participants, which is a pretty staggering statistic, if you ask me. But towards the end of it, they offer some key info. We are glad to report that this test helped us confirm that we are on track with our current goals. While we cannot confirm the exact date the game will be available, we can say that our calendar for early 2026 is shaping up to be full of exciting moments for The Division Resurgence and The Division as a franchise. So, listen, I know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me thrice, shame on Ubisoft? I don't know where I was going with that. Point is, we've been burned many times by promises for Resurgence that have fell through. Somehow it has made it through all of those though to now, and genuinely it seems like this time it is actually happening. Like we've already talked about ad nauseum in this video, it looks as though all roads point to the 10th anniversary in March. And at this point, given everything we are seeing, I fully anticipate that amongst all other drops and announcements, March will deliver the full and official release of The Division Resurgence. Maybe I'll end up beating my words, but that's my prediction. Lock it and print it. Alright, and then I'd be remiss without at least mentioning that we have another small little project happening in the background. What were they calling it again? Oh, right, The Division 3, I think? I kid. I know for many of you this is all you care about. When, what, where is The Division 3? Well, as I briefly mentioned earlier on, I do not expect any kind of major announcements on the game, certainly not its release in 2026. I just want to get that out of the way now. The team working on it has been cooking for about a year now, which is solid. We're making progress, but they've got a ways to go. Now, I do want to make a sort of yearly status update video for Div 3 like we did last year, where we go a bit more in-depth into the minute details and updates that we've gotten, so stay tuned for that in the coming days. But the TLDW of that, spoiler warning, is don't anticipate anything huge for 3 this year. AAA development takes a long time these days, and I fully anticipate that the team is going to take their time and cook this as best they can. With that being said, unlike last year, where I said I thought there was no chance that we'd get any information whatsoever, which ended up being true, I do think there is a chance, I repeat, a chance that we could receive our first minor details about the game, that being at, come on, say it with me, the 10th anniversary in March. Now, I want to be clear that this is fully a prediction on my end. So far, no indication has been given that they intend to give us anything Div 3 related, but when you take a step back and just look at it, I think it kind of makes sense. They've said they want the 10th anniversary to be special. Fans are ravenous for any morsel of info they can get on the new game. So, what better way to satisfy that thirst and commemorate 10 years of this incredible franchise than to give us a small glimpse at what lies ahead? As for what that glimpse could be, I'm personally setting my expectations low, again if it happens at all, which it very well could not. If they do talk about the Division 3, I'm expecting we get something like the official logo, like they did when Division 2 was first announced in March of 2018, or maybe they go so far as to tell us what location 3 is going to be set in. I would not expect gameplay, I wouldn't even expect like a CG trailer, and if you want to run the risk of no disappointment, then I would say expect nothing at all, but it seems as though the stars are aligning here, so we'll see what we end up getting. Okay, so at this point we have covered each individual notable project and piece of content that we know of for 2026. Before we close out, though, I wanted to briefly discuss what is fueling all of this development and explain what I see as the gamble that Ubisoft is taking this year. Now, if you've been an active player or just member of the Division 2 community these past few years, then you're likely quite familiar with some variation of this phrase. This is cool, but... And yeah, that has been the story ever since Division 2 returned to market with Season 9 after a year and a half content drought during which they had to rebuild the entire development team. I think the majority agree that since then, the team's effort has rarely been the issue with content we've gotten. It's just that it became glaringly obvious how Ubisoft was not giving the division the funding nor resources it needed to properly thrive within the looter-shooter genre, but slowly that narrative has been changing. The Division 3 got greenlit back in 2023. The release of Star Wars Outlaws marked a significant shift behind the scenes, with Julian Garrity returning to the franchise as executive producer and many resources being freed up at Massive. And then, after over 2 years of painstaking work from the small team the game was given over in Bucharest, the Battle for Brooklyn DLC released last year. And guess what? It did well. Ubisoft confirmed that the DLC's release, alongside other initiatives, led to the game seeing its highest player count since May of 2020, and that was really what I think was the final nail in the coffin for them to wake up and realize what was needed. All of a sudden, a new team is being formed at Massive to develop Survivors. Greater and more frequent content drops begin coming from Bucharest, with retaliations and then the Halloween and winter events highlighting the back half of the year hot off the DLC's release. None of that is coincidence. It marks a definitive shift that has been happening behind the scenes, but we're only beginning to see the fruits from it, where because we now have an executive producer to champion these projects, because we have verifiable evidence that players will show up for these larger content drops, corporate is saying, okay, here you go, make something happen. And I think we're going to see that as 2026 progresses, with whatever announcements may come in March with the anniversary, with the release of Survivors, and whatever else the Bucharest team may be working on in tandem. Content releases are going to steadily grow larger, more frequent, and more ambitious. It's an exciting time as a fan, no question. However, that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods just yet. We as players are finally getting what we wanted, greater investment, but it's worth keeping the reality in mind that that investment can be taken away. Brooklyn did really well for what they were aiming for with it, but is it possible that it's just a one-off? Will we see a similar pop for Survivors or whatever else is in store? As much as people don't want it to be true, the Division 3 is still a long ways off. That, I think, is almost guaranteed to get the attention that it needs to recoup the investment for it. However, the road leading up to that is really what is in question. Will players stick with the Division 2? Can it continue building the momentum necessary to sustain the growth that the franchise has been seeing? That's up to all of us, but moreover, it's up to the teams around the world that are hard at work on future content. Can they cook up some truly irresistible updates and surprises? Man, I hope so. The bottom line is, like the analogy goes, it can take a long time to steer a ship in a new direction, but I truly feel as though heading into 2026, the steering is done. Now it's time to let the sails down and see what awaits. My friends, that is a look at all of the major events, content, and other noteworthy details about what's in store for the Division franchise in 2026. As I said just a moment ago, it's a really exciting time to be a fan, notwithstanding whatever has yet to be announced or what is well beyond this year with the Division 3, but just Survivors and Resurgence alone. It's wild that we are finally getting winter in Washington and that a spin-off title is finally going to release. Rest in peace, Heartland. So yeah, it's going to be a journey, but one that I am pumped to take. At this point, you have heard my first ramble of the year. Now I want to hear yours. Let me know any and all thoughts you've got in relation to really anything. We just about touched on it all in this video. How are you feeling about the Division heading into this new year? Let me know. That is everything that I have for you today. Thank you all so much for tuning in and watching. I hope to see you back very soon for more. But until then, RogueGold. Ow. Oh! We just got a Ravenous! I might not be friendly. Let's go.
Coming to the Division 2.
Let's go!